Hey everyone, and welcome to World Conservation Summit. My name is Tanya Anderson, and I am host on this amazing summit. And today we have a special guest. I've looked so much forward to this summit. Her name is Dr. Laurie Marker. Welcome, my friend.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Glad to be with you. I'm doing good.
Amazing, amazing. So who
Spending
is
my
this?
life racing after cheetahs. So
exactly. So before we're digging into this interview, we get to know who we have with us. This amazing lady, as you see beside me. She's founder and ex-director of Cheetah Conservation Fund. So share a little bit about it, and she will share more in depth about where did everything start, and also the non-organizations as she did create. So this is a Cheetah Conservation Fund, and it's a global leader, resource and conservation of cheetah, and dedicated to save the cheetah in the wild. So my friends, share a little bit about these amazing organizations, a little bit about you before we are digging into where did everything start.
Great. Well, I set the foundation up in 1990, and we are based in Namibia, where our field base is, as well as with a different field base now up in Somaliland, which we've developed over the last couple of years. Most of our work has been done over 35 years in Namibia. And what we try to do is to work with communities to try to keep cheetahs living free and in the wild. Cheetahs are an animal that are not found really in protected areas. So we work with the farming community, the pastoralists, governments, everybody we can in awareness building to try to let them know how endangered the cheetah is. It is Africa's most endangered big cat. And what we're trying to do is to save the species for future generations in the wild, with the people.
Amazing. So where did everything start with your passion for the cheetah?
Well, I started my work back in the 70s. I started working at a wildlife park in Oregon at Wildlife Safari. And from this work, very few people knew anything about cheetahs. So I ran the wildlife park, I ran the veterinary clinic, and from that was fascinated with cheetahs, and I wanted to know everything there was to know about them. Cheetahs are an animal that don't breed well in captivity. There are very few of them actually living in captivity globally, much more today than there were back then. A lot of that is because of the great work that myself and our organization have done over the years. Cheetahs didn't breed well in captivity, so I developed the most successful breeding program for them. And in the middle 1970s, I found myself in Namibia, Africa, doing research on the wild cheetahs. What I wanted to know was where they were, what was going on. At the same time, I was conducting a pioneering research program, taking a cheetah that had been put in captivity and put her back into the wild to find out what steps were involved in a reintroduction process, because over time, the reason why we have zoos was to try to develop breeding programs, maintain genetic diversity, and eventually put them back in the wild where we could. Well, that was a dream back then, although things have gone, I would say, full circle, as today we're actually starting to do that. But in Namibia, I found that farmers were killing cheetahs. They were killing 800 and 900 a year, and it was because of livestock losses. And I said, really? That's a lot of livestock loss. Is it perceived, or is it an actual threat that they have? And so I set it out to actually try to find out why farmers were killing so many cheetahs, livestock farmers. But in the meantime, after I came back from Namibia my first time, I traveled through most of the rest of the cheetah range countries to try to assess what was going on there, to try to bring the world the awareness that the cheetah needed help. We were losing them in the wild, and nobody even knew that. And sadly, I found out nobody really cared. And that's why I did set up the Cheetah Conservation Fund. But in the meantime, I'd moved from Oregon to Washington, D.C., where I then joined the Smithsonian and developed a research program there called NOAA Center, working with colleagues looking at the genetic makeup of species, as well as looking at reproduction and wild animal medicines as it related to wild populations. And from this, we developed and found that the cheetah actually lacked genetic diversity. And that was in the early 1980s. And our genetic research has continued from the work that we've done in Namibia. Now, when I went into Namibia also, nobody knew what a healthy free-ranging animal even looked like, so that we couldn't even tell how to keep these animals healthy and well in captivity. So when I was with the farming community in Namibia, and I started there right at Namibia getting its independence from South Africa. And that was in 1990. And so as I did arrive there, I was able to help work together with the new government on a lot of the wildlife issues that were being done and the issues around cheetahs. So what I did in Namibia originally is I went door to door and started working together with the farming community. And if they caught a cheetah in a catch cage, instead of killing it, they would call me, and I do workups and put collars on the cat. And next thing we knew, we had, over the years, the first baseline information on this very amazing species. So that's a nutshell overview on how I got there.
Thank you for sharing. And the topic we get to talk about today is make the wild a better place. So my friend, share a bit about why this topic is so important for us to dig into or learn the information about.
Well, cheetahs are, again, still an animal that don't breed well in captivity, and animals are supposed to live in the wild. So what does that really mean? And what does it mean to make the wild a better place? A place where animals can live. And this is becoming more and more of a problem for animals worldwide. We are at our 6th major extinction, which I think people don't quite realize. And we are losing animals right and left. And what we're trying to do is to be very solution-based. We are a research organization, and so we've done a lot of research on mitigation strategies. Of the 7,000 cheetahs that are left in the world, in the wild, there are 80% of them are found outside of protected areas. So they're on land with livestock farmers. And so what we need to do is to help the livestock farmers take better care of their livestock. But we also need to grow grass and have wildlife, because the cheetah would rather have wildlife than it would to have their livestock. But globally, I think farmers are not the best at taking care of their livestock. They put them out in the wild and they think that they should just live out there, and if anything comes, it's the predator's problem versus the farmer's problem. And so what we've tried to do is to help the farmers become a part of the solution, instead of just saying that they are a problem and a problem animal, and for them to realize that they play a really key role in the loss of their livestock if there are predators around. So we do farmer training programs, like we call it Future Farmers of Africa. And we work very closely on healthcare, teaching them more about, what diseases there are, and also about grazing management, how to have enough grass, because you can't have too much livestock and it eats the grass, and then the benefits of having the wildlife on the land. And in Namibia, we're very famous for what are called conservancies. And here, communities, it's an integrated system, are responsible for the wildlife. And so they actually graze their livestock in areas where wildlife is as well. And if you have integrated systems and can protect your livestock, grow enough grass, wildlife is there, and then the animals are protected from predators. But we also have another program that we work with, and that is using livestock guarding dogs. And these are a large breed of dog. They're called Anatolian Shepherds or Kangal dogs. And the dogs have been used in Turkey for about 6,000 years.
Oh, wow.
They bark loudly, they mark territory, and predators actually don't want to just come in and eat your livestock. I think everyone thinks, predators, they just want to be out there eating it, but they don't. They want an easy meal, because if something happens to them when they're trying to hunt, they will be dead, basically. And so by having the livestock guarding dogs, the dogs bark loudly, the predators know where they are, and so it's through avoidance that the predators don't come in to their livestock and move off. Or you can actually have, kind of a mixed system, that the livestock's out during the day, the livestock goes into a protected boma at night where the dog is, and then the predators can be roaming around also at night as well. So we really spent a lot of time teaching people how systems work. We are in a major system, which is our ecosystem. And from that, when you have a top predator like the cheetah, you actually have much greater biodiversity. And most farmers don't understand that. And those are also the things that we actually work with the farming communities to try to share with them about how these systems actually are functioning and why predators should be a part of that system as well. So many of our programs, are about education and training, but we also, and research. So we've got, for instance, a genetics laboratory and, of course, registered veterinary clinics. And we are caring for a lot of animals. I mean, sadly, like today, we ended up with, in 2 parts of the world, 4 cheetahs being brought in from the wild.
Oh,
And 4, and I mean, it's just devastating. 2 of them were caught on a farm, a livestock farm in Namibia, and the farmer was adamant, cats got to go. So of course we have to work very closely with the Minister of Environment and Tourism and Forestry to make sure that we get the right permits and then are working together and then have been able to save those cats, and we'll find another relocation for them to go back out into the wild. The other 2 cats have come in from the illegal wildlife pet trade, which is another area that we're working actively on. And this is up in the Horn of Africa. Sadly, cubs are being stolen from the wild, poached. Their mothers are killed or they're chased away. The little cubs come in and they are being transported and sold illegally into usually the Middle East, where there is still an active illegal wildlife pet trade. People want these animals as a status symbol, as a pet. Although we've worked closely and hard with the governments in Saudi and UAE, they have strict laws, but people are still illegally getting these animals. The 2 cubs that we have just gotten in today are about maybe 6 weeks of age.
oh,
They are almost starved to death. Malnutrition is the biggest problem. For every 1 cheetah that might make it into the pet trade, 4 or 5 of them die. Now, for the last 4 years, we've been working very actively in Somaliland to train and work with the communities, work with the Ministry of Environment on actually knowing how to go about confiscating the animals. We've helped train, police informants, the police department, and changing laws so people can go to jail. Fortunately, this time 6 people went to jail. Although the cubs have been confiscated and we have to take care of them, we now have 94 cheetah cubs that we are taking care of in Somaliland due to the illegal wildlife pet trade. And many of the animals that have come to us have come in dead. So these are the ones that we've been able to save over the last 4 years. So those are animals coming out of the wild, which we already only have 7,000 individuals. So this is a real crisis that we're talking about, because as the more animals come out of the wild, they can't reproduce, and then they're not doing their proper function to help the ecosystem, which helps all of us, which we don't always understand. So those are the aspects that we're dealing with, and we're dealing and going about it in a variety of ways, from research, conservation, education, awareness, and globally trying to get people to be aware that the fastest land animal, the cheetah, Africa's most endangered big cat, is losing its race unless we get smarter and faster at the work that we're doing to try to help.
That is crazy. I have no clue. It was the biggest cat that was close to be extinct. It's just so crazy, because it's one of the big 5 tourists want to see. Just that is crazy. Not something I hear in Denmark. So it's just so interesting. Is the information I have seen is not really putting out there why it's so important to really choose to put more focus on the cheetah and the conservation and really save them. I have no clue. Wow, that is crazy.
Well, thank you for asking, though, and bringing this forward to your listeners, because most people don't know. They always know that the cheetah is the fastest land animal, but they are not aware of all the implications underneath that, of what it's like to live. They are the best hunter of all of Africa, but with that, they are not an aggressive and powerful animal. So they don't have big teeth, big claws. They're not a big cat. So what they have is speed, and they will make a kill, and then they will actually run away if they are confronted by lions, hyenas, jackals, even vultures who can aggressively take their kill away from them. And so the cheetah is actually hunting for everybody on the veld. And with that, they're very important to everyone, but there is also high losses. So for instance, in many of the game reserves, you can have high infant mortality, and they lose much of their prey. And again, that's why have moved out onto these livestock farmlands, or pastoral lands where there are not other large predators like lions and hyenas, which then they're dealing with humans. And throughout Africa, especially where the cheetahs are, they're in some of the most arid landscapes, where some of the poorest people in the world are, who don't have the knowledge to even know how to take care of their livestock, plus have any other livelihoods except that of pastoral livestock farming. And so I think that's where we play a really key role, is to try to look at not just good livestock management, but secondary industries with that. For instance, instead of just carrying your goats on the hoofs so that you can eat them, we've developed strategies and programs around how to help rural communities learn that they can make cheese, for instance. Even if you have no refrigeration, you can do it with, milk your animal, whether it's a goat, a sheep. They don't have a lot of cows in many of the areas in these rural areas, or maybe a camel. And then you just heat up the milk, put in a little bit of lemon juice or citric acid, and boom, all of a sudden you have some cheese. Then you can carry that cheese with you for several days. So much easier. So those are the kinds of strategies. We're looking at livelihoods around how to have people have secondary industries, or an economic approach as well, from maybe craft making, because women can do and make crafts, and some of these crafts are beautiful, but then how to actually develop them into crafts that people want to buy, instead of just things that maybe don't look good or maybe smell good. And so we've tried to develop an entire livelihood program along that line as well, to bring nice crafts into communities and helping women. And if you can help women, life is good.
Amazing. I'm curious to know, when your organization gets cheetah in, like, how can they go out in the wild? Because there is different kind of information now. There are some say yes, some say no. So like, what is happening afterwards when you receive the cheetah cubs?
Well, in Namibia, we've developed a very successful rehabilitation program. If you do not get cubs in that are too young, that are on a bottle, because once they're bottle raised, they are habituated to people. And these do not make good reintroduction. But in Namibia, oftentimes mothers are killed, and we get animals that are older, maybe 3 or 4 months of age. Those animals potentially can go back out into the wild because they are not habituated. And from that, though, you have to still raise them up. They do not leave their mom. They have a very long training period with their mom. That's about 18 to 22 months. Wow. So if we do get cubs in, we are based in Namibia on a very large ranch. We're about 58,000 hectares, and it is a wildlife park, as well as, we call it a model farm as well, because we do have our livestock there to teach people how they can have an integrated system, protect their livestock, as well as having wildlife and making a good living and not killing predators. But we have large areas where we do our rehabilitation work as well. But you still have to raise these cubs up until they're about 2.5 years of age. And then at this point, we've been able to develop strategies of putting cats back out into the wild. And this has been very, very, very successful. Again, remember, I started this originally back in the 70s and have perfected it now in the 2020s. So from that, we are putting animals back out into the wild, and they're having reproduction and second and third generations, which is really what you want. But animals in Somaliland, for instance, that have come into it as tiny, tiny babies and are on bottles and are in horrible, horrible condition. They are malnourished. It's just horrible what they are. And then they get viruses and and it's the complications from all this coming out of the wild. So from that, these animals probably will never go back out of the wild because they're not healthy, but we can keep them healthy and then utilize the same kind of techniques that we've developed, for instance, in Namibia for potentially their offspring, which we could then bring healthy animals back, rehabilitate them, and again, have animals that could be prepared and ready to go into the wild. So those are our big strategies. Nothing happens overnight. And as you know, and I've said, I've been on this road, the cheetah racetrack, for almost 50 years, and are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, days like today, where you end up seeing these animals coming in from the wild. Know that we have still so much work to do. And with that, we need the kind of resources and funds that it takes to keep these animals alive, the work alive, so that we can stop the animals being taken from the wild, being killed in the wild, and try to make a wild a place where the cheetah and the people can live in harmony together.
Amen. Amen. It is so beautiful. And also one of the things I really love, many other things I really love with the job you're doing is how you really meet the farmers where they are and really see them for beings. And I think that is so beautiful. Something many people can learn, whatever they work with, is really meet the person where they are, like the farmers or whoever they are, and we'll see, okay, how can we make a change so that we really are in balance with the wild and keep it really a better place for the humans, the work, and also for the wild animals, because as in Africa is so different compared to in Denmark, like what you have of money, your work, and like the way how you eat is so different. So one of the things many people can learn, definitely people in Europe, is really meet people where they are and really get educated with like what is the livelihood, where it is coming from, what is the culture, instead of just judging for what they're doing. And that I really love with your work is really meet people where they are, and you have also that part of your organization really teaching people how everything can work together.
Very much so. And so we spent a lot of time, obviously, with the people because they're the ones that are living in harmony, if we can get them that way, with the animals in the wild. And that's why we've developed our model farm as well, because, you know, most predator people will go out there and say, we love the predators. Well, I was also raised as a livestock farmer. I love my goats. I'm a dairy goat farmer, and the farmers love their cattle. And with that, it's not a us or them. What we're looking for is that we. And together we've developed tools with, you know, many other organizations working with predators around the world. There are tools where people can live in harmony. And this is not just in Africa, on a global scale. We, as humans, are afraid of predators, primarily because back in the thousands of years ago, we were afraid of them. We've now learned so much. Certainly you want to be fearful, but the animals want to stay away from you. What we want to do is to protect what's ours. But we also want to make sure that we have an ecosystem that has wildlife within it. And that's why our Namibian conservancies are so important. And we've developed these conservancies, and we're now helping develop conservancies up in Somaliland. There have been great conservancies in Kenya. And this is where the communities take responsibility and ownership of the wildlife species on their land, which can then see their ecosystem healthier. And then with that, if you've got wonderful wildlife in Africa, you can also benefit through ecotourism. So ecotourism is a piece of the puzzle. It's not nirvana. It's a piece that plays a key role. And then ecotourism obviously brings in also economics. And so all of it is tied in together. It's not one thing, one thing, one thing. It's an integration of all of these programs together, or a holistic overview. And then still with that, you know, from a funding standpoint, we have to continue, you know, funding all of this as well. And I know that there are ways that, you know, people might be interested in learning about how they could help.
Yes, please.
So for instance, please go to our website, which is cheetah.org. So that would be the one thing to look at and learn about the different programs that we have there and how you might want to get involved. currently we do and are caring for almost 100 cheetahs.
Wow.
And with that, we do have to also feed them.
Of course.
Right? And for each one of those, they eat about $5,000 worth of food every year. So we go through in Somaliland almost 100 goats a week, if that gives an idea of the kind of food. And we also have, medical care, and we've got, our team of veterinarians between both Namibia and Somaliland are about 6 or 7, which are, constantly working kind of 24 hours a day on many of these cases. With these little cubs that are coming in right now, our team will be up 24 hours a day taking care of these new young cubs. And we're hoping to stop. This is the time of the year when cubs can start coming in, and we're hoping to stop the trade by awareness. So with that, it takes people on the ground, going to communities, continuing with our research, doing our genetic work on finding out where these animals have actually come from. Looking also at aspects of caring for the livestock guarding dogs. So we've got 2 programs. One is a sponsor a cheetah, and you can find out about that on our website. You can also sponsor a livestock guarding dog, and you can find out more about that also on our website. And the different programs of, bringing in school children. In Namibia, we have about 25,000 school children that we work with every year. And over the years, that's really added up to the point that why Namibia is a leader, I think, in conservation in not only Africa, but in the world, is that we have a educated group of people, the country, that have gone through since independence an awareness of the value of wildlife in the land. And we don't have a lot of poaching like other African countries do. And there has been much awareness that have come forward. So education is critical. And we're now putting these into areas in Somaliland as well as throughout the world. So we work everywhere where cheetahs are, and we train. We've brought people in from all the range countries down to Namibia to try to help them learn about the programs that we've developed, that we can help them develop programs in these range countries. I've got a big conference going on in January to try to look at solutions to the problems that I have laid out on a global scale. We're looking at creative financing. How indeed can we actually come up with different ideas around living in harmony with nature, from certifying farmers as being, ecosystem stewards of the earth. And with that, there does have to be then economics that are going to go back to these farmers as well, because they do need to make a living. Farmers are kind of the salt of the earth. And with that, if given the training, given the support morally and physically, I'm going to say, and maybe financially to some extent, like having a livestock guarding dog, the farmers do want to do the right thing. What they don't want is they don't want to lose their livestock. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to develop these kinds of programs. But with that, asking the public, foundations, to join us in financing the work that needs to be done. And, people often wonder, oh, well, is it just Laurie out there? No, I'm now an older person, and I have had amazing staff of professionals. And local, we've got in Namibia over 140 staff members. And many of them have come through our program as interns. And so they're, very well educated, and they know exactly what to do, and are out on the ground all the time with the communities, working together with programs to allow everyone to live in harmony. And in Somaliland, we have now about almost 30 staff on the ground trying to stop this horrific trade. And then again, what it looks like to actually care for almost 100 cheetahs. I want to ask people what they think about that. We've had to develop a whole new center in Somaliland. The government gave us about 50,000 hectares of land. In the last 2 years, we've had to, do you think in hectares or acres? I'm never sure. Probably hectares.
Hectares,
Yeah. So very, very large land.
Yeah.
But we've had to develop it as well. We are off the grid in both of our facilities. But in the last 2 years, we've we were so fast with these orphan cubs in Somaliland. They were in safe houses. And we started building about almost 2 years ago, and we now have finished our facilities that we've moved all the nearly 100 cheetahs into large enclosures. I mean, this is naturalistic 5 hectare to 20 hectare compounds, huge enclosures.
Wow.
Where cheetahs are living in. And that's what we are at in Namibia as well, very large enclosures. So we don't want the animals to be in cages. So those are kind of the steps that one takes. And what happens when you're trying to save a species and keep it in the wild, sometimes you do have to interject and help these animals, like these tiny cubs, to look at a future for them going forward in the future. And then some of this too, in the last year, we've had great success in putting cheetahs back into the wild in India.
Oh, wow.
And,
oh, wow. Brilliant.
And these are animals that were already living in the wild. And it was in India, the cheetah went extinct about 75 years ago in the 1950s. And this, the government has not lost any other animals. The country has not. And we're very, very concerned because the cheetah had been revered for thousands of years, which they have been by royalty everywhere. But they did not realize that they loved them to extinction by bringing them out of the wild and using them as hunting companions and protection of their thrones and things like this. And then the hunting came forward, and by the mid 1950s, the cheetah in India was extinct.
Crazy.
So we worked together with the government. This was between the governments of Namibia and South Africa, partnering with India. Namibia gifted India 8 cheetahs, of which we were brought forward and brought into India, and have been on the ground in India for about a year, working together with their teams. We've done lots of training with their veterinarians, their ranger staff, letting them know the steps involved in putting an animal back in the wild, which we've had so much success doing over the years. And then so that was a year ago, and then South Africa brought in a group of cheetahs. And so we're a year into this. We've had some losses, but we've had some births, and we have learned an awful lot, and we are continuing working very hard at this project. Putting an animal back out into the wild is not something that happens overnight.
No.
It's a very hard process on the animals, on the staff. But with that, the successes we are pleased with. We might not see success in this project for 15 to 20 years, but being committed and having the government so committed, the work will not be easy, but we see that we are making progress on a day-to-day basis. And there are other countries that want cheetahs back. So we in many of the areas that we're looking at, there are 31 populations, and 20 of those populations of cheetahs are under 100 individuals.
Wow.
It's really not a very sustainable. So we're looking at augmentation of populations, bringing animals in to try to help beef them up because they're breeding basically inbreeding to extinction. And then we're also looking at other areas that want cheetahs back, like, let us say, the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, where the cheetahs were extinct in the 1970s, and they're actually rewilding their country. They're regreening it and bringing in wildlife, and with that, the predator will be the next thing. So,
wow, I did not know that. That is a powerful move for that kind of country.
Yeah, so there's much going on, and every part of it is step by step.
Yeah,
hard work, and daily challenges.
Yeah.
And then again, navigating the human side of everything.
Yeah.
So I think we often think of wildlife as somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
For the cheetah, its survival is in the hands of humans. They live with humans, and we know what we can do. We've developed these tools on a variety of different levels and scales. We know a lot about their overall health, their genetic makeup, their reproduction, but with that won't save them. What's going to save them are working together with the people on the land and helping develop strategies and looking at the financing that it's going to take to help these people who are living in utter poverty in many places.
Yeah.
And then with that, I'm going to say Cheetah Conservation Fund, with the help of our partners on a global scale, who are private people, individuals, just like the people who are listening to this podcast, providing the support and help so that we can do the work that we know that we can do to try to help the species. And so we really ask people to learn more about what we do. Again, go to our website, cheetah.org, and then from that, figure if you can get involved. We also take volunteers and interns. So we, again, are very educational oriented, and we take interns from a lot of different universities. I should say one of our main cheetah keepers is a Danish woman who is one of the best cheetah animal caretakers that I've ever met. And her name's Leah. So there we've got a Danish connection right there together. And that so volunteers regularly come and help us. And again, you can learn more about our volunteer program on our website, cheetah.org. And if anyone's in university and wants to learn more about wildlife management, veterinary medicine, genetics, the business side of conservation, livelihood development, all of those aspects, we welcome great students as well. We have a lot of master's and PhD students, and we work collectively with many of the different universities around the world as well. So it's a overall large project that we are asking people to look at, get involved in, invest in.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a small amount of dollars, help, because a lot of small goes a long way as well.
Exactly.
But if anyone is listening who's got a lot, share.
Exactly. It is the small step, as I see. There is the big, they create the big one, and we get to go together as a community and really see, okay, how can we support this, and finding ideas, finding solution. And there are so many to you, the audience, how you really can support this organization. And one thing I think of many things, this issue I think is so critical and very interesting is when you work with wildlife, when you're really make the wild a better place, it's not only one thing, there's many things that is going into that topic to make it a success. As you just talked about, there's so many different kind of areas of educations, connection with different kind of people. There's never one thing, there's many, side in it to make it a success, to protect the teachers. So to you, dear audience, we will invite you to go right now to teacher.org and sign up to the newsletter. Click on subscribe on all the social media platforms, because it's critical. You really get connected with them and receive messages from them, receive news from them, and also how you really can support them. There is so many ways, because we really know you out there, the audience. You want to go create this world a better place and live more sustainability. So why not let it go of the candy you get to buy in the weekend or the cup of coffee and donate that? Like, really see, okay, where is in my lifestyle, can I cut something off so that I choose to live a healthy lifestyle? And supporting these amazing organizations with that, you're cutting off to live at more sustainability and also healthy lifestyle. There is supporting wild by your choices in your life. So please go to the webpage, sign up, and we'll take the first step and say, cut your cup of coffee and whatever you cut off your addiction to, or cut off Netflix, and really donate that. because that really make you a sense of connecting yourself, that make you really like a hope is starting you, because you get to have the hope, the light starting you, so that you really get connected, learn about it, and create big awareness. Because as Dr. Laurie is talking about, it's all about you to step forward, donate, connect, commit, because commitment is investment, and that is also by donation. Really invest in a better future. So with that, we thank you for both of our hearts, for you to listen, for your time, for your passion to really support the teachers and these amazing organizations by you go to the webpage and sign up to the work and be part of it. So it's you, my friend, Dr. Laurie. Thank you for what of my heart, for you to sharing so powerful interview for me to just listen. There is like gold like moments in this interview, and I look forward to see it again and writing a powerful blog around your work. So thank you for bottom of my heart, for you, for being who you are and have an opinion and really do the education that gets to be done to save and serve the teachers.
Thank you so much. And you've got a great following of people who do care, and sustainability is really what we need to be a part of. And top predators like the cheetah are a part of that, and they do need people's help. And again, please do go to our website, cheetah.org, and we look forward to working closer with you, Tanya, over time, not just today, but as we continue this journey together to make the wild a better place, and a place for animals like cheetahs and all the other wildlife that's there. And so please hope everyone spreads the word as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing day. Bye, everyone.